Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for hanging with me on this Thursday. So today I want to talk about big topwater walking baits because we're hearing a lot about big baits, those big jointed swim baits and glide baits, and they've really become a big part of bass fishing and competitive bass fishing. But as most of us have realized, if we've ever thrown them or we've just been around it, we've seen it in tournaments or in videos or whatever, they aren't the baits that catch you a limit. They're strictly for one bite. And I think you can take that same mentality and apply it to these type baits as well. You know, this is a pretty big bait, and it's not always the conditions, but sometimes it's the lake, sometimes it's the time of year. But it's rare that if you go out there and throw this bait all day, you'll catch a limit on it. And it's not always just baits like this. You know, sometimes in the spring, a frog can be that way. If you get a bite on it, it's going to be a giant, but you can't catch 5 on it. And there's a lot of baits like this, but most of the time it's these bigger baits. And you will go to some lakes where, I think of Kentucky Lake in the fall, it's brutally tough. And there may be another bait or two that you can get a bite on, but for the most part, like, your only way of catching keeper bass is on this. So then you do haven't any other option but to throw it all day. But that is not something you should do everywhere. So the first time I really ever did get on limits of fish and catching the biggest bags of anyone in the tournament was on this bait on Kentucky Lake in the fall. I tried to take that same mentality to every other lake I went to, and you just don't catch them. It doesn't matter if it's the one lake down from Kentucky Lake, Pickwick, and it's the post-spawn, and there's supposed to be a post-spawn spook bite, and you go and throw it all day. There's a good chance you won't catch anything at all, and you'll have no idea. So I want to talk about this bait as how I use it, and how I use it is for one bite. You know, it's a lot like how I fish a jig earlier in the year when I have some fish that I'm catching on a chatterbait, and I have some fish that I'm catching on a square bill, and I have some fish that I'm catching on a lipless and a swim bait. The jig is never going to be, I'm going to go catch all my fish on it. It's, let's go and get one bite that is completely different from all these other fish I'm catching. That's what this does. You know, you may be flipping grass, or you may be flipping laydowns, or throwing a buzzbait, and you're just going down the bank and you're covering a ton of water and you're throwing a buzzbait. Well, then when you get to that high percentage area, like you're going into the extreme back of a pocket, or maybe there's a really good looking tree that you've already made a few casts with a buzzbait, or maybe you have like a big point, it comes out a little further than you thought, and you really need something that's going to have a lot more drawing power, but you really need a special situation for them to bite it. That's where this bait comes in handy. So I keep one on my deck, but I never really think that I'm going to catch a bunch of fish on it. It's never that way. And typically when you do catch a bunch of fish on it, they're schooling, they're smaller, or maybe you do get lucky and a school of big fish comes up, then you can catch them on that bait. But as far as just like running down the bank, and this is a great pattern if you want to throw it a ton and catch 2 or 3 big fish because there's nothing else going on in the lake. You can do that. I also like to mix a buzzbait or something else in there that's going to get me a few more bites in this, just to kind of have an insurance policy. But this is never, unless it's the only bait, this is never going to be the bait where you just catch all your fish on it, unless you can't catch anything on anything else and you've spent days trying other things. So this is a double-edged sword. It catches big fish, but it's hard to catch a lot of fish on it, especially the right ones that you're looking for. But I think a lot of people see this big bait, like they see a lot of big baits, and go, man, you really catch all those fish on that. Not really. It's a little glimmers of hope you get, and you see a gizzard shad skip, or you have a storm roll in or something, a big fish jumps, and you can get to this bait quick enough and make a cast over to it. That's when this bait goes down. But as far as just picking this up, throwing it all day, you're going to wear your wrist out, and you're probably not going to catch a whole lot of bass. So take a bait like this, and understand it before you try to make it part of your game. That's going to help you become a better fisherman. Try that. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.